All right, we have another astrology video today, and it's the moon in the sixth house. All right, moon sign is your emotions, your soul, your subconscious, right? That is what the moon is. Then the sixth house is the house of service to yourself and others, health, the kind of health you have. Are you gonna take care of yourself, or are you gonna just like let shit happen to you and you don't care about your? It depends on what your sign is, right? And like what you have in that house, right? Um, then you have legacy too, comes with the sixth house. You're trying to like leave your mark on this world. So like, are you gonna be a person in this life that doesn't do everything to the best of their ability? Are you gonna be an example of what others should be? Are you going to, how are you going to leave your mark? That kind of shit, right? But basically, since you have, a moon in the sixth house, you like to try to regulate your emotions the best you can. Um, when it comes to, a routine lifestyle, once, things happen in life, right? And it could throw your routine off. Certain signs handle that situation better than other ones, right? So I'm going to go through the list and let you know what's going on. So, Aries moon in the sixth house. You are a passionate person, right? You can be deeply, passionate about, different things. Certain things tick you the fuck off too, and you won't, be afraid to let people know what the fuck, makes you angry, right? You might sometimes have problems with, managing those emotions, right? You're one of those signs, right? Let's say you're, going to work, um, doing something. Um, for you, it might not be that you can't, accomplish something because you're also very competitive and shit, right? And you like to challenge yourself, right? It's the fact that sometimes you're like, why ain't you trying to do your best? Why ain't you trying to, get shit done? Why ain't you trying to challenge yourself to other people, right? You know, because you might feel as though like they're attacking you for like being too busy or just moving around too much, doing whatever you're doing. You're always doing something as an Aries moon, right? So busy at work, busy, in social interactions with other people, busy, fucking around with bitches or guys. It don't matter, that it gets to the point where somebody says something and then it ticks you off and you're like, hey, well, you ain't, you know you're gonna get mad at me because I want to you know take things in my own hands and do what I gotta do, you know so that's where you can stumble a little bit. It ain't that like when you get emotional you can't get shit done. It's that you'll cause a fucking issue, if you feel like people are not seeing you in the right light, kind of thing, right? They'll say you're selfish. They'll say you're, this, you're that. You're quick to, get over some shit. So, you weren't seeing things bright the white, right? Um, and that may or may not be true, but you can let that anger get the better of you. But when that's like honed, like reined in, you can like solve that issue. You can solve the problem. You can be like, okay, well, you know, this is what we can do to fix the issue. Because you do like to, get shit handled. But that's when you can, manage those emotions and other things. You like to work out and other things. You will always be a person that likes to, run around and do physical activity, right? That helps with your, physical health. And that goes, you like to challenge yourself like in the gym, in the, workplace, anything that you get some competitive edge going. Other people might not like that about you though. So then that comes up too. They weren't trying to do that or whatever, and then you're like upset because you're looking for people who are like you and want to better themselves and challenge themselves. And some people ain't like that, and that ticks you off sometimes. But you always probably be remembered as a person who pushes others to like, man, do something, that kind of thing. So the next person is a Taurus moon in the sixth house. So Taurus moon in the sixth house, you have stability. You know how to regulate your emotions. As the Taurus moon is the exaltation point of the moon, you know how to regulate your emotions, and also you have the ability to understand that other people also have emotions. Other people get emotional, and emotional triggers, tick them off too. You know, make them, depressed, make them sad, make them angry. And this, because of all the, emotions you feel and other things, but you know how to regulate them. You like to stick to a specific plan that you have, and then execute what you got to do. Go to work, wake up. You stay consistent. Um, you're also a very patient person too. Um, but it does get to those times sometimes where you have to like you feel like you have to stand your ground, and you don't care what other people say, right? This kind of way I live has worked for me, and I don't need you telling me how to run my life, right? Because it has worked for me, and what I'm doing is what I'm doing. Once you set your mind to something, right, that's what it is. And it's like true stubbornness, you know, sometimes, right? Like sometimes it'd be like you are like wrong or not wrong, but you could, stand to, maybe, listen to what other people have to say. But then you're like, nah, because for you, you are managing your emotions, you can handle anything, that you set your mind to. So if I decided to do this, I'm gonna go do it, and I'm gonna do it, with everything I got, I put my heart and energy into that shit, right? They don't get that kind of shit. So that might piss you off, right? Because they see it as you're being stubborn and other things, which may be the case, but it also may be, you're just like, about what you're trying to do. No, I'm not playing games. I'm not somebody who's trying to switch up or do something, differently, a different way, you know, because for you, right, you want to be that person who's remembered as somebody who was like, always there. You were available to help people out. You ain't a sign that likes to not help people out either. That's not what it means. It means when somebody asks you for help, you're gonna do it your way, right? And you're grounded too. So it's not like one of those things where they're coming to you. They're coming to you in the first place because they know you're like that, and you see things for how they are. So you're gonna give them what you gotta give them, right? Whatever advice you have to give them, you gotta help them out physically. You gotta move some shit around for them. You don't got no problems with that, right? You know, as long as they ain't trying to throw your routine off, whatever that is for you, whatever you stay consistent at. Whatever, if they trying to like throw that shit off in any kind of way, you're gonna have some fucking issues with that, right? And that's when you start to get, more violent, and you might be upset at those people because you thought they understood that about you and they didn't. But you're one of the signs that regulate their emotions pretty well. Um, and then when it's all said and done, people usually would remember you as a, they're reliable. When I need you, you were there, kind of shit, right? And even when everybody else was doing other things, you were still there, that kind of shit, right? And that's powerful sometimes, right? So the next time, or the next sign, god damn it, the next sign is Gemini moon in the sixth house, right? So Gemini moon, you like to run around and talk to people, right? You know, you regulate your emotions. You feel the need to Like, go out there and, figure out what's going on, or let people know what's going on with you. I feel like this, or I think this about something, or this has been on my mind. Da, 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 da. And you have deep conversations with other people, right? And for you, that's actually a healthy thing to do. It is a healthy thing to do, to like talk to people. Now, I said to talk to people, not, you know, because this is also a thing where if you're too emotional, and you might run around and you might just be saying some shit about somebody else that ain't even true. You were just trying to like spark some kind of like debates, or you know bring up some like kind of, you start some problems sometimes because your mouth gets you in trouble, that kind of shit. And it does, you know because yes, you need that conversation to, you know because it's good to talk to people, it is. But then if you're running around for the sake of like spreading gossip or talking shit behind somebody's back, that shit's not funny. It's not a joke or anything, but sometimes you might think that it is, you know or you're doing that just to get back at somebody else who did you wrong. You're like, okay, I'm gonna make these people think this about you and other things. And the way you deliver a conversation, people would believe you. Oh wow, I didn't think that so and so was like that, but since you said it, maybe it's true. And you're trying to, cause, problems in other people's lives sometimes. But in a positive way, at least, you're like, okay, maybe I've done too much at work. Or maybe I gotta go talk to my friends, you know, and like get away from that shit a little bit. Or maybe I have to cut them off and I have to, talk to like my coworkers more, depending on like what kind of life you live and, other signs, right? So you're gonna like, either way, you're still gonna be talking to people. You're still gonna be thinking about shit. Um, you know, and when it comes to routine, you're a person who's like a little bit more flexible. Let's say some shit happens and you're like, you kind of like go with it, and you try to figure out a way to like, make it work, and you usually do, you know, because Gemini likes to think, right, and communicate. And if you're in a problem, you're going to look for people to talk to, which is what you like to do. And it is a good thing. But again, if you're trying to just spread gossip and talk shit about other people just for the sake of trying to get back at somebody, or just to, start something because something was, your life was boring, that's just not funny. But when you're, out there, trying to improve yourself, trying to help others improve themselves, you're trying to give them information, like, and like legitimately try to, help somebody out, who might need help, that might need help, or you want to give them some information about whatever the fuck is going on in the area, or what you heard or whatever, right? When people need somebody to talk to, they always know that you're the one they want to talk to, kind of thing. And you'll be like kind of remembered as that kind of person for people. You know, your friends and people when you're dead, they'll be like, I remember, so and so, they were that person I came to talk to. You know, they were always, great to talk to, that kind of thing. Um, when nobody else wanted to. But the next sign is Cancer. Cancer moon in the sixth house. So cancers are emotional, right? Cancer moon sign, that's the home placement for the moon sign, right? You are definitely emotional. So this is what you do to like, get yourself right. Take baths every day. That's a healthy thing. That helps you regulate those emotions better. You know, taking baths, being near water is a good thing for you. It soothes you, it calms you down and all that, right? And it could be either way with you, honestly. Sometimes you can, you can make a situation really bad. No different than the Aries, as far as if you, right, as a Cancer moon, are emotionally hurt by something, and you let that just like keep just eating at you. I'm upset about this. I'm upset about that. You kind of bring up the past in conversation a lot. And then it's like you're causing problems for yourself, but you don't see it that you, as the Cancer moon, don't see it that way. And you're like, do you remember when you did this to me? Yeah, do you remember when you did that to me? Oh yeah, do you remember when you did this to me? You know, and it's like you're beating a dead horse, an old experience that's already since passed. And it's like people are trying to move past it, and you just keep bringing that shit up because you are still, emotionally hurt by that. You want to be the center of attention, or you want to, make people feel bad. But when you do it like that, you cause problems for yourself. Some of y'all know, and some of y'all need to understand that. And this is for the moon sign. So if you know your moon signs in Cancer, you know, it initiates emotions. So in a positive way, you could be one who is nurturing and caring. You like to serve others, right? The people that you love in this life, like your family and the very close friends you have, you would do shit for them. You would take up all kind of shit for them. They need something from you, you'll be like, yeah, I got you. You don't just do that shit for anybody. Now you can be helpful a little bit to other people, but like what I'm saying is you're pouring more of your energy and time into those people, and to you that's what you need. Those people are important in your life. You wouldn't want anything bad to happen to them, right? So you're going to do the best you can to make sure that those people are great. You're a great support in that way, and you're of great service to your people inside the community that you live in, right? And that's basically how people will remember you as a good um man. You're good at just not people pleasing necessarily, but being pleasing the ones that you care about, your family members, you know your very close friends. You like to make sure they're all right. You prioritize that kind of thing, because you care about that deep emotional connection between you and these people, right? So you'll do anything to keep that, and they know that, and they know that you'll be there for them, you know, But also, that can also get toxic. Like I said, when you want to bring up the past and people are trying to move past shit, they don't like that. But ultimately, you'll be remembered as a person who actually, cared about the people who were like, constantly in your life, you know. And despite sometimes being that way, bringing up the past to like, cause issues, you were still there and you were still trying to. Oh damn, you're just trying to help them out. Well, not in that situation, but you were trying to be there and really keep them around too because they were important to you. The next sign is Leo moon in the sixth house. So Leo moon is loud, creative, fun, but they're also arrogant. They're also prideful, you know. When you feel like, deeply feel like, you have been ignored, you're gonna like cause a scene. You're gonna get loud. You're gonna get upset. You're gonna let people know. You're gonna start some shit just to be the center of attention. You'll be the problem just to become the center of attention. But then also you're gonna blame everybody else sometimes because they weren't taking note of you. So they weren't taking note of you. So then you became an issue. But then you're gonna tell everybody else that why aren't you taking note of me? I'm so and so, and you're bringing up all this other shit. You're you know because you like to be the center of attention, right? And that's where the negative shit comes in for you, right? You need that shit constantly. You need human interaction. You need that closeness. You need a friend group. You need that shit. You need that reassurance from people, right? Because you are who you are, and you know what you do, other people don't do, and it hurts you deeply when your friends, your family, people you want to hang out with, people you want to have fun, that you want to that you want to see you, you know, do whatever the fuck you do, ain't really feeling you, ain't really giving you attention. That shit pisses you off. You know, bit of jealousy there too for others, but in a positive way, you can bring people together, right? You can bring people together, you know, and like your friends, the people you like, and you know, you can make something fun of, um, you know, with you know the people you like, people you know grew up with, people you know hang out with, and you're that guy or that female that does shit like that, right? You know, you bring people's spirits up, you know, and you do, you know, but it gets unhealthy when you try to like you know do shit like that. And you getting upset because they're bringing up other things, and you're not the like main um, subject that they're talking about. And then you know you can be like that with like random people too. You know, like they didn't take note of you, so now you're upset about that. You know, you really like lip service and shit, right? But as long as you have those like people who are like loyal to you or see you in the way that you want to be seen, you'll be all right. You know, you won't really be like going crazy. You know, causing spectacles, you know, getting out of sorts like that. You know, now your friends might tick you off every once in a while because you're used to a certain routine of like you guys doing shit together, and then they bring something up that you don't like, or they bring a new person into the friend group that you're not familiar with, and then you're like all sideways with them. You're like, why the fuck is this person here? Or we were supposed to do this today, and now you want us to, or you're trying to have everybody, you know, want to do some other shit that we don't do. I don't like that. You know, you like competition too, but you also like control. You like to be in control of the situation. You know, your friend, all that shit, right? Like to be the one that's, you know, seen and known about. If you can, you know, manage to not get too jealous of other people or um, fear loss of friends, you'll, you know, be remembered as a guy or a girl who was like that. You know, a person who was uplifting people, um, you know, encouraged others, you know, and brought everybody in your friend group up. You know, not just a few people, but everybody who you know you surrounded yourself with. They all have great things to say about you because you were just a great person to be around in this life. The next sign is Virgo moon in the sixth house. So Virgo in the sixth house, that's cool. Now it's Virgo moon in the sixth house. And if you know anything about the Green Angel don't really care much about Virgo moon. But I do understand where they're coming from somewhat, you know? And not somewhat, I do. So these people, right? They definitely stick to a routine. You know, they believe in taking care of themselves, being healthy, but they're very specific about shit. They are. You know, if it ain't this, then it's all wrong. If it ain't this, then it's all wrong. That is good for them. And it is. They stick to that routine, and when they need to like, you know, change things, they don't like it. And it does tick them off too. But they also see a way to like, okay, I can modify my plans if if I have to, because other people are in my life, and that's just a part of life. So I can, change my plans or tweak my plans a little bit, but the minute I have to tweak my plans or my routine any like too much because I'm already like on top of shit and I know what works for me, that's gonna piss me the fuck off. And then it's like once they're in that mood, right, they will just see and like shit that they try to like. Okay, so a Virgo, right? They pick up on details, small details that other people don't pick up on, and it like fucks with them sometimes. But with the Virgo moon, it hits them even harder. So they will like really be upset by it. They'll be like, "So you're wearing your shoes on the carpet, you know, when you know you're not supposed to. Maybe not that. That's not. That's not really like that. Um, okay, this is a good one. I told you to put that can of soda on the table, and you did put it on the table for him, right? But it's on a part of the table that is, you know, you probably shouldn't have put it there, but you were like listening to them. You put it on the fucking table, but these people are getting sideways with you because it's not on a specific part of the table, and they're like all ate up. They're all sideways. They all out of sorts. Nitpicking at you, telling you, you need to pay more attention to where you put shit and other things, making it a problem out of something small, you know which ain't that big of a deal, but they believe in, and this is what they believe in too. When the small things ain't taken care of, everything else is destroyed. And to some degree they're right, but sometimes it's not even like that. Let's say you're trying to just chill with these people and they get sideways at that. You're trying. They then bring tension and other things into the mix that don't need to be there. You know, so you wanted me to sit the can on the table. That's cool, right? I did that. Now don't bitch about it being in a specific spot. You know, I knew some Virgo moons, and these people were actually important in my development as a human being, like earlier on in my life. So I do know what that's like. So you people who have that, but there is a positive here. Despite that, right? Let's say they, you're part of their life and other things, and it's like unavoidable. You see them every day. Um, you know that this person, right? They don't play around and shit. They really, you know, take time to, plan things out. Take time to, um, they pay attention to the details. I know, like, I beat that shit like a dead horse every time I tell a video, but it's like so fucking true about these people. And other people don't do that, right? They don't take their time with shit, and then not just take their time with it, but really think through what's being done and what's being seen. The little things about you that other people would never pick up. These people pick up, and you will never have that. Once these people are gone, so they're like good at like checking people, and they are, but sometimes they do that shit too much. But it's still a good thing sometimes because some people need that kick in the ass. You know, check your the small details of things sometimes because if you're trying to build something, right, you don't want to build a weak ass foundation. You want a strong, sturdy foundation, and you don't want the ground to fall out from under you, right? You want to be solid, and they like to make sure all areas are covered. The next sign is Libra moon in the sixth house. Libra moon in the sixth house, you need communication too, like other moon signs do, right? You believe in having that there, right? It's healthy to know things about people. It's healthy to be around other people. You know, give information, receive information, and talk to people with, a calm, cool manner, calm and cool manner. Talk to them, right? Considering other people. So you're also a person who likes to, serve other people, much like Virgo does, right? Serve other people, for the better of the, community and the place you stay in, right? You like to make sure shit is safe. See, because you have a sense of justice, right? You like to make sure people are taken care of, everything's accounted for. You like to keep the peace, right? That's what drives you forward, right? At the same time, sometimes, and this ain't all of y'all, but sometimes you'll create a problem just to fix the problem and be like known as that person who's that person who, you know, fixes shit. It's like when shit gets boring and, you know, you want to do something with somebody or you want somebody specific to, recognize you as a person who is, peaceable, calm, cool, collected, then you're gonna start doing shit like that, right? You're gonna create a problem, swoop in, act like, you're there to, fix the issue. And I know you people, think in those terms sometimes, right? But it's also unhealthy, right? And some of y'all know that. So some of y'all don't even do that, but some of y'all do. If you, are looking to, find certain people and other things, because you're ruled by Venus, so you also have been known to be jealous sometimes, you know. Because like for you, it's like, I'm there. I'm always talking to you. I'm always, giving my opinions. I'm always, hearing what you have to say and giving you, my take on this and that. And then you get hurt because, other people ain't so, man, considerate like you are and think about other people. So then it can become unhealthy, right? But, uh, cool communication is cool communication, right? You have your friends, you have your acquaintances, you know where people stand, you know what you don't want in your area, you know what you don't want in your community, in your workplace, So when you see that, you try to nip it in the bud, and then if you have to, you'll tell authorities, you know, to like, make sure everybody else is all right. And you like to try to be that, person, with that sense of justice in the area. And that's how people, kind of view you, as a person who has their own sense of justice, right? You like to bring balance to a situation. You like to bring, conflict to an end, kind of shit, right? And that's a good thing, but also you could also, cause problems for yourself when you like somebody too much, and then you want to, because you're smart and you know how to talk to just about anyone, you know, you might create an issue to swoop in and look like a hero, right? But you still, you try to do it out of love or come from that. Um, but talking to people is a good thing, but don't gossip about other people and talk shit about other people. Much like the Gemini, just because you want to keep somebody around, um, and be in a relationship with certain people or whatever it might be. You just want to be seen as a person who is that guy or that girl who's like the one who mediates things and hey, I'm the one who, is always, here, and I'm the one who's always, fixing the issue. I'm telling this person that they right about this, but at the same time, this person, you weren't supposed to do that. You like to, like, again, I believe you people kind of have a sense of justice about you that sometimes, causes problems for you. So, the next people on the list is the Scorpio moon in the sixth house. Scorpio moon in the sixth house, you're emotional. Let's get that out of the way. You know, Scorpio moon, you're very emotional, And then the moon signs also at its fall placement here. The lowest point of the moon apparently is in Scorpio. But don't worry about that because you're still intuitive, right? You go through and you go to work, you do your thing, and it ain't like you don't, got drive, you know, you can get shit done. But sometimes when you, like, because you probably need, to be around water too. But see, you're also ruled by Mars, so, you know, or Mars energy, Pluto energy, you like to change a lot, or try to change, right? You have to kill a part of yourself to become a new person, right? That kind of thing. You are still there too, right? You're a person though who will, you know, you're willing to do anything to, anybody, or if something, you deeply desire is out there, you wanna, go after it, get after it, but you're deeply hurt when other people don't get it. They don't understand. And these could be people who are, in your life, friends, family, that kind of thing. And you expected them to, understand that, but then they don't. That shit makes you angry. That shit makes you, furious. But it's something that you bottle up. Not bottle up. I wouldn't say bottle up necessarily, but it's like you don't let it be known like an Aries does, right? You let it be known through your actions. You'll give the silent treatment. You'll just do some things. You're the type of person that'll just, if you're angry and like I don't know, you would just flip a table. And people will be like, why did he do that? Why'd she do that? You know, you feel as though people don't get you on an emotional level, right? But then you're always seeking somebody who can get you like that, who does understand your, that deeper side of yourself, right? You know, you might dread going to work, you might do that, but and then all that builds up, right? So you do, and you stick to what you do at work and other things, and you're also a person who likes to stick to a certain routine, and you are because it's a fixed water sign. But water's also flexible, so you're also flexible, but certain things you're not flexible on, right? Because I like to describe Scorpio as deep water, right? There's certain shit you just won't budge on, right? There's certain things you just will never do. Um, you'll never accept from other people. That shit's disrespectful. And then when they trigger you emotionally, you get, spiteful, you get vengeful, you want to get revenge. They made you feel a certain way that you didn't want to feel. So now you want to get revenge on them. You want to get vengeance. You want to run that shit like Sasuke Uchiha did on Danzo. You get on that kind of timing, when people, make you angry, and like your deep emotional triggers, right? You don't necessarily care who it is either because it could be somebody love and shit, and if it's somebody you love and they do something to you that ticks you off, you're still gonna get them eventually. you know Karma has a funny way of coming back around and getting you kind of shit, and that's what you do. You try to get back at other people, but it's dangerous too because they don't see it coming, you see it coming, but that's unhealthy, right? So what you try to do is this. Yes, they did that to me, but I'm moving on. And like you do move on too when you get to being like that because you find something else to do and you turn that energy that you could have used for that into motivation, into drive, passion. And then that, like, you can get so much done in your life. Whatever you're trying to build, whatever you're trying to, make yourself become, it goes towards that. And then it's like your success is like they look at you and they're like, damn, I never knew that so and so was gonna, and then you're just doing it, and honestly, you're living a better life than they are. Whoever hurt you or whatever, and you don't have to really, you'll never forget what happened, but at the same time, you've won. You know, so and there's Scorpios who are like that, right? Scorpio moons are like that. But you also a person who understands people have emotions and other things. So you know try not to take advantage of people too much, but you still do. Um, just don't take advantage of shit to the point of you know it coming back and hurting you as a Scorpio, right? Because you're supposed to take advantage of shit in this life, but you know too much. The next person is Sagittarius moon in the sixth house. Sagittarius moon, you like to learn shit from people and you like to experience new things, right? You like to go new places and, try different things out that you never done before, right? Your routine is kind of sporadic. So what it is it's not necessarily that you have a problem with, and this is what it is. It's when somebody tries to get you to follow their specific routine schedule and you are not on that timing, right? You are, okay, I don't need to do that because the way I live my life, it just won't work. I could probably do that for a few days, but man, I gotta, try other things. I gotta do this, I gotta do that. I'm still trying to, and you won't wait, right? You're impatient. You have impatience, right? So you're like, nah, I can't do that. Not that I can't do it. That ain't it. I can only do it for so long, kind of shit, right? Other people see that as, okay, they could get offended by it. And then that can lead to basically conflict because you are like, yes, I hear what you're saying. And, I could even implement that for a little bit, but I don't see me sticking to that type of daily schedule, doing this day in and day out. You know, you like newness, more newness, right? And you like to actually go out and experience shit as opposed to being told just being told shit by other people, right? You like hearing about other people's experiences, but then you want to have your own experiences to create yourself. You don't care about all that, right? But when people try to tell you that's how it's going to be and that's how it's going to be, or this is how it is, and whatever, you might know that, they're being honest and there's some truth to that, but also you want to still live your life and still do whatever the fuck you wanted to do. You wanted to be over here and then be over here and then be over there. You know, they don't get it, but that's like the kind of routine life you have for a while. You people don't really calm the fuck down until like later on in life, and if ever, right? So those people are just gonna have to eat it and calm the fuck down. You'll get to them when you get to them, or you might never because you don't see that as exciting enough. They don't pull your attention enough. But you also, like I said though, you would still like take somebody's advice because you still a little bit flexible, and you would. But if you ever feel like you're getting boxed in and told that it's this way or nothing, you know, it's like something inside of you is like, no, I can do this other shit. And you just say, fuck them, right? Depending on who it is and what they said, because, you have emotional triggers, right? certain shit that you don't like people saying, and then also, that mouth that you have, unfiltered and other things, when they do tick you off, you're like, oh, okay, da, 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 da. You let them, know what the fuck, you think, or what you see about them, what they've done, or they show you. Um, like I'm saying, like y'all might be like a little, that might um, fuck with your health though when you get into conflict because you feel as though somebody's boxing you in, and that might not necessarily be the case. Sometimes um, people might not be boxing you in; they might be telling you to try whatever that is out at a later date, and you just don't want to do it. You want to do it right then, and then you're like, they're telling you some shit, and then you're just like, no, I'm not having it, and then you get into fights with people and shit like that. But then, when you listen, and you're like, oh, okay, maybe I can do, maybe I could try something else right now, and then try that at that specific time if it's like really that fucking horrible, right? If I do it right now, because you're also able to see the bigger picture, and Jupiter, you're ruled by Jupiter, so it expands, so you see more. So you're like, okay, I could do something else right now, and then do that later. You might have wanted to, but you can still do that. You're flexible enough. But people still like you because you're like that, right? You see, opportunities, you seize them when you want to seize them, and other things. So, damn, you're just a vibe to be around. You've had so many experiences after done whatever you've done. See what you want to see, experience what you want to experience. That you become an interesting person to like listen to and learn from, and all of that. The next person is Capricorn Moon in the sixth house. Capricorn Moon in the sixth house likes to regulate their emotions, and they like to, see things for what they really are, right? Like in doing that, though, they can cause problems and stuff, and not in the way that you think, because Capricorn is a real sign, right? Or I ain't gonna say that. What I'm saying is they see reality, the good, the bad. They might be seen as pessimistic sometimes. Like, let's say you have a dream, right? To be a billionaire, or to do this, do that. They'll, hit you with all that like negative, well, it takes this and takes that. And well, you don't have, you don't meet these criteria right now, and given, your past and other things. And then, I don't think your future is looking like that for you. It's going to take a lot of like kind of like you know like more effort than you ever put in your entire life, that kind of shit. And that comes afterwards. They tell you all the like why you can't, and it's like not coming from a place of I hate you. That's not what it is. It's coming from a place of, does this person know what real actual steps come in to building that kind of thing. And then this is where you get emotional though. When this person says, yeah, despite all that shit you said, I still see myself being a billionaire in the future. And then, I don't, and then, but it's also like they ain't listening to like all the shit you told them, because it seems as though it seems as though you're being an asshole, and you just don't give a fuck about what they're trying to accomplish, and you're just like pessimistic and like, no, you can't do that because this, right? All this goes into that, and you don't have that in you. You were then more of an asshole because they didn't want to listen to the facts that you laid out. you know you're a person, right, that sticks to routine, you know which steps are necessary to, get shit done in the day. You probably, do physical activities because that's an earthly moon sign. You're grounded. Um, Even like I said, ambitious. You can do this and can do that and have that kind of go get it attitude. But then other people, you're like, I don't know. I know what steps you have to take to do whatever, but then are you going to execute that? Because I know I could, and then you're saying shit like that too, and it's like true, but then it causes issues sometimes. And I'm not saying all the time, but what I'm saying basically is you don't care about like sugarcoating anything or other people's emotions. Like when there's something to be done, hey man, something needs to be done. You don't want to do it, but you got to do it, or like you don't feel like doing it, but you have to do it. You believe in a career path, hitting that shit hard, and becoming doing the best you can at that, right? Doing what needs to be done, even when you're tired, even when you hurt, even when all that shit, right? Just get after it, make that shit happen. And then other people just don't because they're more emotional, like truly emotional, deeply hurt by shit. They let it get to them. You don't let it get to you. But then because, you don't let it get to you or you act like you don't let it get to you, you're just like, damn, you just dumb. You just don't see shit for what it really is. And then arguments happen and other things. But, you know, you might be right, but then also you might not be, depending on what the situation is. Because maybe they weren't trying to, gloat or anything. They just were like, that's my future goals. And then came in out of nowhere like an asshole and said, "Da, da, 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 that can't happen, you know, because of this, and you're this kind of person." So, and you're just like laying it on them like that, right? And it's like uncalled for at this moment. Like it's not something you gotta do. You don't gotta, destroy somebody's dreams like that. And that's one way it could like, manifest with these people, right? Or just you feel like other people, like again, can't see reality for what it is and what you see, you know. So then you become an asshole, you get out of sorts. But like I said, you're still a grounded person. You're still an ambitious person to some degree. You're still a person who can, take practical action. Has a sense of urgency to get shit done for yourself. Um, you stick to a certain routine, and then also, like I said, people don't take your advice because you like to like manage shit too, right? When you feel it's not being managed, you know, you can't manage it, and then you start getting out of sorts because shit's falling apart around you. Oh, I can't manage this now. What the fuck's going on in my life, And you start to become, an asshole. You start to become depressed and other things. But you don't try to stay in that too long because you always see a way out, despite knowing the challenges that come, that lie ahead in your life. You still know you have the ability to do that because you ain't gonna stay in that energy. Again, Capricorn is cardinal Earth, so they initiate action, right? Practical action, right? So, and you do that in others too. That's why I said you like to manage people. And sometimes when you manage people, you can actually help them get to their dream if you like, see it in them and you know that these people can listen to your instruction and what you want them to do. You lay a plan out for them and then they execute it and then you just want to be around them because you see them successful in what they're building, and you know that they have that in them, and then you're like, damn, we could actually make something here. And people like you because you have a real you know realistic way of seeing shit. Now the next sign is Aquarius moon in the sixth house. So Aquarius moon like me, but in the sixth house, you do like to plan things, but sometimes when you plan, shit don't always go as planned, right? As Aquarius is ruled by two planets, Saturn and Uranus, and Uranus is a bit unpredictable. You like to take problems on as they come, but you're also a person who like knows there's people out there. You have an ability to talk to people. You use that to your advantage. Talking to people, networking with people, you can get things done. You can create a better plan for yourself and improve your life if that's what you need to do. You know, you like to conversate. You probably like to read and research different subjects that pique your interest, right? A little weird or quirky to some people, whatever. People still know about you, because you talk and other things when you feel deeply moved to and other things, right? Because it's in your moon sign. You ain't ever gonna like not have somebody to talk to. You'll always be around. And there's always people around wherever we go on this in this place, right? Um, you like to solve the problem. So like you have a routine. It will piss you off a little bit, but then you're like, newness is good too. I like something new. I like to broaden my horizons. Take in new information and see what's going on. So if I have to, modify my plans a little bit, I can do that. It's when people want you to like kind of think in their way and only think their way. You know, that's the shit you don't like because then you ain't thinking outside the box. And you feel like, or if you ever feel that way about some shit, you know, you don't like that, right? So I can change my routine a little bit, but don't ever tell me to not think outside the box, to think like you or whatever, right? You can think however you want to think, however ideas you want to have, right? Listen to what other people's ideas are, and you know how to pick up on like trends and people and what people have been doing and other things and been saying because you're a person that lives in this reality. You know about the collective shit, right? You know, this Aquarius moon though likes to you like to make sure you're on top of your health. Like you make sure you talk to people when you have to. You ain't gonna isolate yourself. So those people don't want to talk to me. I got my friends don't want to talk to me. I have other people to talk to. I'm not gonna let okay, my friends don't want to talk to me. Oh, I'm gonna isolate myself. No, I'm gonna have those questions and take them elsewhere and learn things, right? Improve myself as leader, right? Um, but and like I said, you like to think for yourself and provide new information to information that's already been there. Have you ever thought about this as opposed to this? You kind of think like a revolutionary. You can be rebellious at times too, but with displacement, you're less rebellious than other Aquarius beings, right? More looking to revolutionize something and be of service to, people in this life. And you like might be somebody who like revolutionizes something, or like you're a person that, man, just people like you because you the way you think, and that's how they remember you. And shit, right? The way you think and the way you like, are open to new ideas. But you also, like I said, it's fixed wind, so you're open to new ideas. But there's certain shit that's like, come on, that don't make any logical sense. The next sign is, and the next and last sign is Pisces moon in the sixth house. Now, Pisces moon in the sixth house, you are a person who gets emotional. You cry and shit, right? Either on the inside or on the outside, depending on what that sun sign is, right? You manipulate people with your emotions. That helps things go smoothly for you and other things, right? But it's kind of like the Cancer situation a little bit. You can bring up the past and then be like, oh, remember when you did that to me? And you like to hang that over somebody's head and, make them feel bad. And, that's kind of toxic, right? You'll bring that up, until they get it, or until they, come back, or until they, decide that, they were the one in the wrong and you were the one in the right. And sometimes that's not even enough because you like to, still play games. That causes you problems, is what I'm saying. Don't ever try to do shit like that. And it's one thing to like do this, right? You can acknowledge what happened in the past, but then, and this is the healthy way of seeing it, yes, you acknowledge their faults from the past, but then they're here right now and they're doing certain things right now that they weren't doing before that you like. So it's like, hey, you were like that before, but guess what? Now you ain't. And then you're adding, okay, you went from this to that. And that's the shit you like, people changing. Because you believe in change. Okay, you're a mutable sign, Pisces. You believe in change and, becoming new. And then a person that did you wrong before, you know, those emotions come back because you are ruled by the past somewhat. You're intuitive. You can tell if, somebody has changed or not a little bit before they even open their mouth. Then they start saying shit, and you're like, well, I still see you as that person, but, I'm glad. You kind of like said just a little bit, and you're like, you can see the positive things that they're trying to do to improve themselves and, make themselves better. You're also a person who's like supportive too. See, when you like somebody deeply and shit, you like to, support them and help them out. You know, you like to care for them and, nurture them a little bit. A bit. You do. Because you know that you wouldn't want to feel those, feel that way, be in a bad way like they feel or whatever. So you try to help them out. You become like kind of like a savior a little bit to these people. You be of service to people because you get it. Well, I ain't gonna say you get it, but you don't like them being in a negative emotion because you know that's gonna fuck with you. So you're gonna do all you can to make them, bring their emotions into a more positive state. However long you have to be with them for, as like, as long as you have, seen this person as a person that, can be changed or will listen to or will, become better from whatever you come up with, because you're also a creative person too. You know, you're a person who can, adapt when needed, right, to a situation. You'll be heard about, the past, but you also like to move forward. I'd say it's between you and Scorpio over like who can move on faster, or we'll say seems to move on, you know, from relationships, from bad situations the best. But I would probably give it to you because that's mutable water, right? And then you're a moon sign, that's Pisces, right? We all know, right? If we've been watching me for a while, that your moon signs, you're like true, deeper self, right? So that creativity goes a long way in your relationships with people when trying to, make the right kind of routine for yourself. You're an emotional person, so you want to, refrain from certain things or, um, do certain things at certain times so, you manage your emotions, right? Probably need to be about some water too. That's always good for you water signs. And then when it's all said and done, you're a person who likes to not just care for somebody, but also like deeply move them in a way that helps them moving forward in life. You like to help them transform. You like to help them, move on, go from being a negative person to a positive person, and you like doing that shit. It's something in you that's like, okay, that's I've done my part, kind of shit in this life. I was able to impact somebody in that kind of manner. This is the moon sign in the sixth house, right? Next week, I have the Mercury sign in the sixth house. Be cool, call in the corner. My natal readings, $350. That comes with the numerology reading too. And they're available. You gotta get in contact with me on my email. At my email, I'll write up your natal reading, your numerology reading, and then I'll send that to you. But that's $350 from me. But be cool, call in the corner, y'all. And I got more videos coming up too.